Jo Caseley cut her teeth busking on the streets of Sydney's King's Cross, although she now lives in the Southern Highlands. And since then, she has released 2 albums, Dusty Dirt Track and Albany. Her latest single is the lovely Houseless Never Homeless, and hopefully there's more music on the way. I might ask her. Hi, Jo.
Hi, how are you, Sophie?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm actually going to take you back to the streets of King's Cross when you were busking and ask you what sort of music you played when you were busking.
Wow. Well, I was playing original music all the way back then. So basically, yeah, I finished school. I was from Narooma on the south coast. Mm-hmm. And when I finished school, I moved to Sydney, like many country kids, to have my cultural experience, you know, to get out of the country. And I had an uncle that actually lived in Darlinghurst in King's Cross. So I was actually moving to Sydney to do an associate diploma in journalism. Which was, you know, I never really knew what I wanted to do, but I knew that I loved writing. I loved writing, so I thought journalism was going to be it. But, you know, it was always the writing was always the songs. They were always there, but the journalism certainly helped. But anyway, so now I don't really want to show my age up too much, Sophie, but it was before the days of social media, put it that way. So it was a little harder to find your clan and find your people when you moved to the city. So at that stage, I was doing things like answering ads in drum media.
I remember drum media.
Right.
You're not alone there.
Singer Wanted, etc., etc. But you know, I did love country music, and I was just not finding my people. I was finding circles that I didn't actually really want to be in. You know, there were a lot of drugs in the cross at that time, and I was a country girl, and that frightened me, and I really wasn't ever into that. So I thought, hell, I'm just going to go down the street and busk and do it on my own. So I did. I took a milk crate from my uncle's house and my guitar. And I used to busk at the top of the train station. There was the tobacco shop. I don't know if you remember King's Cross back in the days when it was seedy. I loved it then. It's all changed now, and it's not like it was back then. It's getting more gentrified, and there's nice markets and wholesome things there that there never was back in the day when I was there in the 90s. You know, it was hardcore drugs and it was seedy. And yeah, so I would take my guitar and I would busk outside the tobacco shop. And I met a beautiful community of people amongst King's Cross doing that. I had my homeless people and my drug addicts, all of the people that used to turn up and accompany me. And really, they would make sure that I was safe, you know. They could tell that I was an outsider at first, and then eventually I was and then I was kind of led into the circle, and then they would keep me safe. So if, you know, a fight broke out or if it got a little bit out of hand, one of them would step in and tell everyone to, you know, pull their head in. So I got to mix with the community, and I wrote some amazing songs about my time in the cross, because I did meet and have connections with people there. And then I got some gigs out of that. So the locals started to see me performing down there, and I think I got my first gig at a little seedy blues bar called Round Midnight. So that's where I did my first gig, and and from then on, did a few more gigs around Sydney, and then I went overseas. So then I went traveling and got out of the cross. But I tell you what, I think if you learn to, you know, be able to perform on the street, it's a great it's just a great life concept, really, to be able to if you can perform on the street to strangers and who knows who's moving past, you can really perform anywhere. I think I like that I cut my chops on the street at King's Cross. I think it was good.
Well, because when you said, oh, I got my first gig around midnight, I was thinking, but you already would have played dozens of gigs on the street, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, venue.
So you said you were studying journalism, and obviously the interest in storytelling was there. Was there anything that you learnt studying journalism that you think helped you as a songwriter?
Yeah, I really do. And, that's why I'm grateful that I did the journalism, because I do think, it's similar. A song, you've only got 3.5 minutes to tell a song and to be able to connect and to be able to conjure emotions. So you really have to condense condense everything into a short period of time. And I think, my journalism and being trained of how to be able to get as much into your who, what, when, where, how, I think that really did help. So I'm grateful.
And I can certainly hear it in your songs, that that structure you have with your songwriting, and also the detail that you put into a song like Albany, the title track of your last album, which is a real heartbreak. Like, there's a whole world in that entire song. And so as soon as you said journalism, I was like, okay, yeah. So she knows about finding the details, telling the story, pacing the story, structuring the story. And that made sense from what I'd heard in your music. So even though I asked you if it was helpful, it may not have been. It might have been actually that you went against those journalistic instincts, but it sounded like, yes, it was.
No, I really do think, and that's why I'm not, my kids are getting to the stage now. Like I've got a son in year 10, and we're trying to decide whether he's going to finish school or study and what he's going to do. And I think, what 17-year-old knows what they're going to do with their life? Really, it's a lot of pressure to put on someone young to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 17. And not many people really have the foresight to know when they're that young what they want to do. But I'm just grateful that my journalism was so helpful for me for my songwriting. And I was able to use so much that I learned, through doing my course and incorporate it into my songwriting. So whilst my parents probably wish that I had pursued journalism and been able to do the career that we invested my college into, I was blessed to get so much more out of it. And I think it really did help me so much with my songwriting. And my songwriting is a passion that I've had, for a very good, for the most part of my life. For the most part of my life, things have come and gone, but songwriting has always been there. So.
And it sounds like you write songs constantly, because there was a reference in something I read about you to hundreds of songs, possibly in a journal or handwritten songs, I don't know. But Houseless Never Homeless was written about a decade ago. So clearly you go back into your own archives to find songs to record.
Yeah, it's I think when I record albums, I get a little I've got so much material to choose from that I really have to ask myself, right, what is it that I'm trying to say?
Right.
And so sometimes, you might have a great song, but it just hasn't fit the album, or it just hasn't, there just hasn't been space for it to be on the path that you've been on in your promotion. And I knew that Houseless Never Homeless was a really special song. And yes, I wrote it 10 years ago, but I also wrote another song with Bill Chambers 10 years ago called The Baby's Cry. And that did make it onto the album. So, both of them didn't make it, but The Baby's Cry did. And then, 10 years later, when I was getting ready to put this album out, I just stumbled across that song and went, why didn't I ever record that one? Yeah, that's good to go on the album. So we pulled it out, and was actually playing it to Bill at the studio, at the Rabbit Hole recording studio at Caseley's. And he sort of said to me, this is a really good song, I really like this song. He said, so many songs people put, just way too many chords in, and there's too many changes and it doesn't make sense. this one just makes sense to me. I like this song. And then I laughed. I said, well, you should. You wrote it with me 10 years ago. And he went, oh, that makes sense.
I'm glad I approve of myself. Yes.
I'm glad I approve of myself. Yeah.
Well, now The Baby's Cry is a song with an American connection in it, in the story. And this song, Houseless Never Homeless, has an American connection because your American grandmother had a journal or a diary or whatever it was. I've forgotten the exact form, but you found this story in that. So how did you actually come across that source material?
Well, yeah, so it's my grandmother's memoir. And I'm so grateful that both my grandmother and my grandfather on my American side both wrote their memoirs and had them printed out, just one for each of the children and the grandchildren. So we all got a copy. And I'm so grateful because, I turn to them often, and when I long to feel close to my grandparents who've passed away, and I love reading about their lives, and I love reading about their views on things and their values, and then it makes me feel close to them, and it makes me think, oh, that's okay, that's why I am how I am, because this is my heritage and this is where I'm from. But yeah, so Houseless Never Homeless was from my grandmother's memoir. And it was about the period post when my grandmother and her family. So there was 4 children. So it was a family of 6, right. And they were living out of their Model T Ford because they were leaving Washington, heading for California in search for a better life. Because there was no work. Times were really, really tough, and so living out of the Model T Ford, camping, doing a lot of camping in the forest. And but it was my grandmother's, it was her take on that time that I thought was so beautiful, and I thought was such a beautiful message, was that even though this was such a tough time for them, she recalled that she didn't feel, even though she was homeless, effectively homeless, she was with her family, and anywhere she was with her family, with love, was her home. So houseless, yes, but never homeless. And I just loved that. I loved that so much that I thought, I'm going to write a song about that. So I'd written I think the first verse and the chorus, and then I had caught up with Bill, and Bill always says, have you written any songs lately? Yes, of course. I'm in the middle of one now. So we sat down and we finished that together. And he was the perfect person to finish that with, because, he has such an appreciation of the old times and American heritage and all of that. So he was a fabulous person to finish the song with. And I'm very grateful. It wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for him.
And then you took it to his daughter at her recording studio, although I wasn't sure if Casey had actually been the producer of the song or if it was someone else working at Rabbit Hole.
Right. No, I had actually contacted Casey and asked her if she would like to produce my album, and she said, actually, no.
Oh, shame.
She said, I have so many hats to wear and producing isn't really one of them. She said, but I'd love you to come and do it at the Rabbit Hole. She said, Brandon is the producer. She said, I am the caterer. Okay. And I said, really? And she said, yep, I will cater for you. And she knows that I'm plant-based, so she catered beautifully, and the food was amazing. But yeah, producing wasn't one of the hats that she likes to wear at the moment. So I had also been working with my producer that I had done my previous album with, Albany, Sid Green. He had started drumming for Casey. Right. So he had joined her band since the last album I made. So when I went to make this album, I said, Sid, why don't we do it at the Rabbit Hole? And, he said, yeah, of course, I'd love to. That would be fabulous. And I said, well, I'll need a band. Like, I don't know who I would use for my band. And he said, well, let's see. We'll see if we can pull some strings. Maybe we could use Casey's band.
I mean, they're just going to be close by, probably. So
let's see. Let me think about that. I think that'd be great. Yep,
yeah.
I could live with that. So, so before I knew it, I was in the studio at Casey's. She was catering, and we had Jeff McCormack on bass, Bill's playing guitar, and Sid's drumming, and Brendan Dodd as well, co-producing with Sid, and also on guitar. So it was fabulous. And we recorded live, Sophie. So that was a little bit nerve-wracking too, because, you know, most people you do overdubbing now with studios. So you sort of start with a guide track and then lay the drums down, bass, guitars over the top, and finally at the end you get your vocal. Well, they don't like to do that at the Rabbit Hole. They really love an organic sound there. So it's live, and the beauty of recording live is you get something magical that you don't get when you do overdubbing. It's the magic of being all together in a room, and, you know, from start to finish, the magic's created and you get what you get. So that's how we recorded this album.
And it sounds appropriate as well that you recorded live, given you had so much live experience and in environments that might be challenging for some singers. You know, if you're surrounded by sounds on the street and different people walking past and all that sort of stuff, I'd say you're an adaptable live performer from your experience.
I think so. I think it's definitely helped. Yeah. I love performing, and I think that the stage is my sanctuary.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I know some people think that when they get on stage, they get nervous or that sort of thing. Well, for me, when I'm on that stage, it's like nothing else can touch me. No one can bother me. No kids can say, Mum, what's for dinner? No one can say, can you get me this? Can you get me that? It's like, time out, it's my time, and I just love it. I love performing, and I love connecting to my audience. It's a very, very sacred and special thing for me.
Yeah. And I'm sure it is for the audience as well. So you mentioned albums. So obviously more songs are to be released on the path to album release. Yes. These days, I know that you know, the single releases are getting stretched out because of streaming services. Do you have a release date in mind for the whole album?
We do, yes. So let's see, next Friday, the 9th of June, I've got a digital release coming out. And then I've got another single that will come out in July. And then the last single will come out with the album in October. So the album will come out in October.
Yeah, and it must be a lovely feeling to have it done, but also maybe, I don't know, because of the way time's stretching out between single releases, you might get impatient to have it out in the world.
Oh, Sophie, it's so different. It's completely different. I'm really enjoying this process. I mean, you know, the last two albums that I did were, pre sort of this single release that everybody's pushing now. So it was, the album was out and that was it. And to tell you the truth, I do enjoy this process, because doing the singles gives you a lot more time to spend introducing each song individually, and, you know, and having people connect with that song, and being able to speak about it and talk about what influenced you to write it and what it meant to you. So I'm enjoying that process. So I've just done the Houseless Never Homeless. So if that was just put out on an album altogether like we used to do, people might have skipped past that song, I guess. But now every song sort of has their place. So I'm enjoying it.
Oh, fantastic. Now, something else you did this year, so the album's coming later this year. Earlier this year, you went to the Academy of Country Music in Tamworth. You are a graduate of the 2023 class. How was that experience?
Oh, it was a fantastic experience. I don't know why I waited so long to go.
Because, as you mentioned, a couple of children, other things going on. Timing has to be right.
Yes, I know. Yes, do have lots of things going on. And no, I just feel very, very blessed. It's about finding your tribe, Sophie. That's what it is. And I'm so blessed to have been able to go to Academy. Roger Corbett and Linny Botel, they just do an amazing job. I'm honestly, the energy and the love that they put into all of the students there is just phenomenal. And, I've been performing for quite some time, and certainly there were some younger people there that don't have the experience that I do. But I tell you what, I learned so much. And because things have changed a lot now, I went knowing that I had a new album to put out, and wanting to find out how to put it out in this changed market, where things have changed a lot. And Roger was the first person who said, well, now really it's all about singles and film clips, because everything's visual now. Everybody wants to see things. And look, don't ask me whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a lot more expensive for the artist. It costs the artist an absolute fortune now. Whether we get it back, who knows? I think if you're out on the road and you're touring, yes, fantastic. If you're not, then, it can be a bit of penny pinching, trying to release things the way that they do now. But, I just loved the process. I loved meeting all of the friends that I have. I went up with a friend of mine that I do a lot of duo work here in the Southern Highlands, Amber Kenny. So she and I have done a lot together in the Highlands. We met so many people, but one of the girls that we really bonded with was Beth Lucas, and Beth is from Queensland. She's wonderful, a wonderful singer-songwriter. And we started a little trio called the Three Birds and the Truth. And don't you love that? Don't you love that?
That's great.
Three Birds and the Truth, that's us. So, and we're having our first performance in a fortnight at the Let's Wing It festival. So,
in Scone, over the June long weekend, Fantastic.
So can't wait for that. So we'll all be performing, a mix of our original songs, and we sing in 3-part harmony, and we've got some ganjos and some harmonicas and all sorts of things going. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. And for me, that's what it's about. Music is about connecting with people. And for me, it's about being part of the country music industry, because it's such a beautiful group of people, and if I want to spend my time with people, it's people like, I find that musicians are deep thinkers, they're empathetic, they're usually, quite conscious people. And I love musicians, and I love the country music industry, and that's why I do it. I want to be able to continue to write songs and perform and travel and do festivals, and just surround myself with lovely people. That's what it is about me. It's about the journey. That's what it is.
Well, I love musicians and the country music industry as well, which is why I love talking to musicians like you. I have had you talking for a while, so I will wrap it up right now, although I feel like I could ask you a dozen more questions, so I'll save it for another interview. But Jo, it's been so lovely to talk to you. Congratulations on the song. And I can't wait to hear the new songs and then the album.
Thanks, Sophie. Thank you so much for having me on your wonderful show. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.